Turning now to H1Bs. It's been a hot topic on the internet and with the Trump administration now for some time. Before we even get into it, some of you may not even know what an H1B visa is. It's kind of an interesting setup here, Ryan, and for many critics, it's what's wrong with the U.S. immigration system. For the pro-business folks, they say it's what's great about the U.S. immigration system, but the effective way it's designed, and please correct me if you think I'm not contextualizing it properly, is that companies will have jobs which require a certain set of skills. The precursor for being able to get an H-1B visa for your worker is that no American can do this job. So I need somebody with a specific set of skills. It's not like the O-1 visa, which is like a talent visa, but I need somebody to be able to come here, the so-called best and the brightest, people who are better educated, let's say they're in general population, to be able to come in and take this job. It's a win-win. They get a fast track to a green card, they get a job. While they're here though, there are certain things like, oh, you can't leave the job, you actually don't have a lot of rights while you're here.
Because they control the visa.
Because they control your visa, right. So there's some downsides there for the employee. They're willing to take a lower wage, largely. Why? Because it's a very easy way to get residency in America, and if you're still here for a certain amount of time, you get here on an H-1B visa, and then you get to the green card, and then you can go and do whatever you want. So the benefit that the companies say is the H-1B visa allows the best and the brightest of the whole world to come to America and to do all these great jobs, to make our country better, to make our economy better, and it's a win-win for everybody. The critics of that, both left and right, by the way, Bernie Sanders and the hard right would say, well, it actually is exploitative because of what I just laid out. The company controls your wage. But second, baked into the contract, not only of your lack of competition by being able to go somewhere else, which obviously is going to reflect in the wage, but part of the wage that you accept in potentially less wage is, let's say you take $15,000 less than an American. Well, it's worth it because you're on fast track to a green card. Right? And so the argument is that it crowds out American workers, people who are native-born American citizens or just American citizens in general who have labor rights, right? They have the ability to contest a non-compete. They can leave whenever they want. They can accept whatever they want.
Can tell them
right, exactly. You can tell it on your body. Right, so that's kind of like the left-right kind of consensus from Bernie Sanders and let's say the more Trump wing of the GOP on here. The argument from the Silicon Valley guys is this is the bread and butter of the U.S. technology industry. Regardless, it became a massive cultural war issue over the last 9 months. And the Trump administration has really had to try to split the difference because they both want to be very pro-big business, but they don't want to be seen as open borders or pro-mass immigration or exploitative types of immigration. So they settled upon this new strategy where they're going to try and charge H-1B visa holders a one-time $100,000 application fee. So the theory behind it is that if somebody is so worth it to bring in, that you're going to have, company's going to have to pay for it. And that means that by raising the cost, that it would make it so that any American worker would now be, of course, as competitive, let's say, over the long term with that person, and it would reduce any competitive advantage that a foreign worker might be able to bring to the table. Now, conceptually, I think that's great. I think it's a good idea. However, let's just say that the way this was rolled out was very confusing, and so I will play it out for all of you. That Trump announced a $100,000 fee. He actually announced it by Howard Lutnick as well, that it would be a rolling $100,000 fee, that it would apply retroactively to a bunch of people, that nobody would be allowed to re-enter the country if they hadn't paid their $100,000 fee, potentially, applying to the hundreds of thousands of people or whoever who are already here on an H-1B visa. And it was just the general chaos you can accept from this administration. So here was a rollout.
One of the most abused visa systems in our current immigration system has been the H-1B non-immigrant visa program. This is supposed to allow highly skilled laborers who work in fields that Americans don't work in to come into the United States of America. What this proclamation will do is raise the fee that companies pay to sponsor H-1B applicants to $100,000. This will ensure that the people they're bringing in are actually very highly skilled and that they're not replaceable by American workers. So it'll protect American workers, but ensure that companies have a pathway to hire truly extraordinary people and bring them to the United States to work.
We need workers. We need workers. We need great workers. And
this pretty much ensures that that's what's going to happen. I think, Sean, do you agree with that?
Well, they're $100,000 per year. So the whole idea is no more will these big tech companies or other big companies train foreign workers.
$100,000 per year. I don't know a single employer who would pay that. It would basically end the H-1B visa system, which I would be actually okay with. But that's not what ended up happening, because immediately big business freaked out and called the Trump White House, who immediately issued this clarification. Let's put this up here on the screen from Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. To be clear, this is not an annual fee. It's a one-time fee that applies only to the petition. Do you remember what Howard Lutnick just said? He said per year.
Yeah.
That's what annual means. Just I want to be clear on my terms. Annual means per year. Okay. Second, those who already hold H-1B visas and are currently outside of the country right now will not be charged $100,000 to reenter. The way that it was originally announced, they would have been. H-1B visa holders can leave and re-enter the country to the same extent as they normally would, whatever ability they have to do that is not impacted by yesterday's proclamation. 3, this applies only to new visas, not renewals, and not current visa holders. It will first apply in the next upcoming lottery cycle. So currently, there are, according to ChatGPT, which is probably, OpenAI is probably a big H-1B recipient, so yeah, just laying it out there. There are 730,000 people currently in the United States who hold an H-1B visa, plus an additional $550,000 dependents, spouses, and children, for a rough total of 1.28 to 1.3 million residents in the United States with H-1B status. The vast majority of these people work in the technology industry. This is like the bread and butter, really, of the way that they have, crafted their business.
And does it say how many in healthcare?
I'll look. While you talk,
second,
I will look that up.
Yeah, so I think your sketching out of the H-1B program is pretty accurate. The problem here, I think, is the remedy here. Like, I think it is absolutely fair to say, and it is correct, that H-1B visa holders are exploited because of the leverage that their employers have over them, and that it allows companies then to, downward pressure wages against American workers. That has to be balanced. So this needs to be reformed. The reform I would suggest is that the H-1B visa would be held by the worker himself or herself.
Right.
And so
I think that's like the O1 visa, like the talent visa.
Right. And yes, it's called this outstanding, is what people call it. If you get an O1 visa, then you can go work anywhere. And that's how it should be, because then those workers can organize with other American workers. If they don't like the job that they're in, they can go try to get a higher salary at another job. That pushes up wages for everybody. Then the counter argument would be, well, no, screw them. Like, we have enough American workers to do everything. What that does not understand is that we are and this is where I kind of separate from some left-wing nationalist types. Like, we are in a global economy. The thing, and I see this from two perspectives. One, as an American. Two, as just a person in the world.
Sure.
As just a person in the world,
global citizen.
Global citizen, it's probably better that the U.S. commits this suicide and stops being this magnet for brains around the world, because we do undermine a lot of other countries by pulling.
Oh, you're talking about the brain drain theory.
The brain drain.
Right.
By pulling in the best doctors from Pakistan, the best engineers from India, the best engineers and software talent from China, and scientists. In a lot of different programs, 100% of the PhDs are foreign-born.
Yes.
I think overall something like 50% of PhDs are foreign-born. They then create companies here in the United States, which gives us our competitive advantage.
This is the GDP
the rest
argument,
of the world,
though, because this is where I differ with them. This is where the big tech guys are like, well, they come here and they form companies. I'm like, yeah, doing what? Doing NFTs? I'm like, wow, great. Thank you for increasing American GDP. All right, so you become filthy rich, you can buy a house in Santa Monica. All right,
well, a lot of them work in hospitals in Kentucky.
No, you're not wrong. Listen, and that's the reality of the balance, and that's why. So I have the breakdown here. In recent years, 65% of approved H-1Bs are for computer-related occupation. A large majority are in software engineering, systems analysis, analysis, programming. After that, the industry sector by sector kind of breaks down, but healthcare, medicine, and health is like 4 to 5%. The reason why that's important is that we have the healthcare exception, where they immediately started putting exclusions, where the White House says that doctors may win a reprieve from the H-1B visa fee. They're like, well, if you're a doc, you know, we can make things work a little bit here. The issue also is that this is very rife for corruption, because the executive order says that the fees can be waived if the Secretary of Homeland Security determines that the hiring of workers on an individual basis is, quote, in the national interest. Yeah. Totally nebulous. Which means if you're Google or OpenAI or Mark Zuckerberg or any of these other people, and you're like, listen, we're in the global race on China. We gotta have these H1Bs, and it would just kill our $1 trillion bottom line to pay a measly $100,000, which we probably, you know, give in stock options to each one of our staff like every other day. But that would just murder our bottom line, you know, if we were forced to do that. And God forbid that we were to have to hire somebody who could leave if they wanted to. So it's in the national interest. And they would be like, oh, of course it's in the national interest, right? And so that's how you could very easily see this become, you know, like a corporate bonanza, which it already is. That's my critique.
Or what will immediately develop, and what is, I guarantee you, is already developing. If you have connections with DHS,
100%.
You set up a lobbying / consulting shop.
And you just pump them
You pay me, and I will bribe or pay and do my whole swamp thing with DHS, and I will, like, you need a waiver?
Yeah,
I got you. I got your waiver. And it also sets up more of this, what Trump loves, which is unilateral leverage over the economy and over specific companies. Like, I want you to say good things about me. I want you to fire this reporter. I want you to, you know, buy my Bitcoin. And if you don't, then you're paying the full freight on these.
Yeah, it's undeniable. I also think there is a big systems question here, and I know a lot of Indian H-1B visas will be mad at me, but you know, newsflash, I'm not actually from India. You know, you are, and that's, you know, we have different interests, the two of us. The thing is that at a system-wide level, starting with H-1B ignores how we got here. So, like, what happened? STEM education. All right, so why is there because the argument is, well, there's not enough people who graduate from STEM. Why is that? You just said, well, we have a college debt crisis. We have a lack of emphasis in math, science, and all. There's a whole argument about how we got there and magnet schools versus public education, whatever. But the point is that we are where we are, where we have a talent shortage according to the market, if you will. Maybe that's true or not, but as you just noted, the PhD programs and all that are overrun by foreigners. Now, there's a lot of questions as to how we got there. A lot of it is that they pay full freight. You can jack up education costs. You can also, you know, the whole visa system is easily gamed by this. There's a lot of financial benefits to a university, which also allows them to continue to massively raise prices. Now, in some cases, don't get me wrong, PhDs and others, the argument they give me is, what are you talking about, you idiot? We don't pay them, or they don't pay us. We pay them because they come and they tutor and work as a graduate assistant or whatever. I think it's multifaceted, is all I'm saying. I do think there's a major financial component to foreign PhD and graduate students, because it's not always working that way. So that's part of the issue, is number one, we have a supply kind of problem. Number two is about this entire scheme of brain drain, like you said. And I think that was true in a bipolar world and in a unipolar world, as in when it was US versus Soviet Union and US versus the rest of the world, where it's not really true anymore in a global, in a multipolar world. And so, look, undeniable, a ton of Indians still want to come to America. Look at the number of visa applications. But also it's kind of a selection bias, because India's 1 billion people, 1.4 billion people. So there's, 0.1% of a billion is still a shitload of people, right? Like, even if they all wanted to come over. But here's the thing, guys. The last time I went to India, a lot of these people, they don't want to come here anymore, all right? Now, a lot do, so don't get me wrong. But a lot of them are like, yeah, Silicon Valley Bank or whatever's got an office here. I'm living a pretty good life on $100,000 a year. If I go to San Diego or Santa Monica, or I'm trying to think of some Northern Cali, San Jose, 100,000. I'm living in a shack for $100,000 a year. Why would I do that, right? We have the internet. Sometimes I have to work nights. Yeah, it sucks, but whatever. That's part of living in a global economy. A lot of the new Indian graduates and kind of like my parents of today, I don't know if they would come here. Quality of life is not bad. They have widespread, 5G internet access. They're a rising nation with their own hopes and dreams. It's not like the communist problems of the 1970s and stagflation. And I'm just saying, all right. So for them, they're like, look, we have this new nation, we have this new national project, and I'm just laying out India, which is a huge part of the H1B process. Again, still a lot of them still want to come here. I don't want to diminish that. But I don't think if you just stop the average Indian, highly educated Indian on the street today, if all of them, maybe in the 1970s, all of them would have said, I want to come to the West. Now, maybe it's 50-50, but that's a lot. Then China is another part of the story. First of all, the Chinese government doesn't want these people to leave anymore. They're like, you're not going
It's like 10 to 15%.
Right, it's like 10 to 15%. Yeah. But my point is just that the Chinese government now, it's not 1990s China, right? It's 2025 China.
Here.
Right, they have plenty of jobs. And in fact, you're going to live a great quality of life. We'll give you the best car. You're going to get a great salary. You have your quality of life is good. Yeah, you can't say anything about Tiananmen Square or whatever, but who cares, right? We're living a good life here.
Here you just can't say anything about Charlie Kirk.
There you go. Okay. But the point is just that if you look at it in all of these different countries, Brazil, I'm trying to think, I wouldn't put Russia on the list considering what's happening here, but South Korea, Japan,
Nigeria,
Singapore. Yeah. Nigeria is a bit different. I still think a lot of them, last time I checked, the immigration stats and all of that were a little bit different. But you have rising economies. And in a more multipolar world, the attractiveness of coming to it's not the dream that it once was, is really the way I would put it. And in fact, especially in Asia, the infrastructure there is 10 times better than it is over here. So you're kind of like, really? Like, I want to give up quality of life for this? You make a lot of money on paper, but you kind of live like shit, compared to anybody who's in Singapore, for example. I just think that part of the brain drain conversation also has to be acknowledged here. And look, it's tough because, entering into multipolarity, what you really want is competitiveness in and of itself, but you also want like a strong nation. And I think part of the H1B system as it is kind of the worst of 1990s theories of most favored nation status and, it's just all about GDP. And I think it's great for business. It's great for stocks. I don't think it's all that great for workers. I definitely don't think it's good for Americans. I broadly think it's largely exploitive.
Yeah.
So
no, that's why I think it changes everything if you let the worker have the visa, let the worker actually have freedom when they're here. But despite how well things are going in a lot of these other countries, we still do have, despite the Trump administration's best efforts, a university system that is the envy of the world. And if you are one of the best and brightest high school students around the world, for a lot of those people, if they can get into an American college, they want to do it. And then, as much as I trash this country, a lot of people love it. There's a lot of cool things about it. And people get here and they're like, this is actually like...
Yeah, listen, it has a lot of pluses.
This is a pretty nice place to live.
Yes.
And it is just undeniable that if you are a country where the smart people from around the world want to move to and make a home here, overall, whether some of them are going to do stupid NFT stuff and rip off dumb Americans, overall, they're going to make a more competitive and richer country.
That's still the GDP argument. That's where I fall on it, is that what we have shown that it could be true, let's say in the 1950s, right, where you bring the best and the brightest of Germany and you use it to build great industry, but you also have some redistributive and
built a
more
nice
of a
plant in
balanced
Omaha
economy.
making combines.
Right, build some combines and some nice rockets. Who cares where the research came from? Took us to the moon, right? Let's just not talk about that little part there. But my point is just that it can be done in a better structured economy. I don't see the evidence for that today. We just covered that story about bottom tier workers, $100,000 or less, basically spending, the top 10% are spending 50% of all consumer spending. And, we can have that story on the very same day that I was just looking yesterday. This is the story of the U.S. stock market. NVIDIA announced a $100 billion investment into OpenAI. NVIDIA's stock then went up by $150 billion. So what's going on here? It's like circular money. You know, it's like
yes, that
like
goes to my other argument that the whole world would be better off if we just collapsed. This whole thing is just utterly ridiculous. And your thing, it reminded me, have you heard that poem? It's something like Werner von Braun, he sends the rockets up, he doesn't know where they come down.
Yeah, definitely not in London. That's right.
Who's to say?
But my point about the NVIDIA, the GDP, you know, the whole competitiveness thing, I really did used to believe that. And of course, it is still true to a certain extent. But we can't pretend that in a world where 50% of consumer spending is in the top 10%, that any of this S&P 500 nonsense matters to 90% of the consuming public, right? It's about the basic electricity costs and all that. And for them, I'm not so sure I see the H1B benefit. And so it should be reformed, but definitely not in the Trumpian fashion.
Yeah, but just because our political system can't figure out how to get our oligarchs in control doesn't mean that we don't need smart people in this country.
Totally, I agree. I'm not saying to throw the baby out with the bathwater. This gets to my point, though, is it really the best and the brightest? The O1 visa exists for that purpose. Sometimes it is just like entry-level software engineer, which, look, I'm not diminishing that. It's a very difficult job.
And there have been a ton of Silicon Valley layoffs.
Right,
so,
exactly.
Which cuts the other way. It's like, wait a minute, why do you need all these H1Bs?
Yeah, that recently happened at Microsoft.
All of these companies are firing all of these.
Did you see that at Microsoft? They recently fired thousands of workers, and then in their lottery, they're like applying for thousands. So you're like, okay, this is about stocks, all right? And you're $2 trillion market cap or something like that. So I think we can all kind of figure out what's happening here. Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.